Hi all, just coming to a new video today, all about dart sponsorship. So what is dart sponsorship? There's a lot of different types of dart sponsorship available, and when I started the 10,000 hours experiment, I toured between the ideas of, do I want to sponsor? What is it? There's not hardly any information out there about it. And obviously along the way I've part different sponsors and stuff like that, and I've also, got affiliated with people who actually are now providing that sort of thing. So for me, it's a massive part of the game that not is often talked about, but there's a lot of people on the fringe or just wonder about it, or already sponsored players and stuff like that. So I thought I'd just share my insight on it and what I've learned so far. So dart sponsorship kind of does what it says on the tin to a certain extent, but there's a little bit more to it, I'd say, for a lot of the time. So really what dart sponsorship is, if you've got someone who is playing, say, I don't know, an example of an 80 to a 90 average regularly. Now that sort of person may be someone who won't achieve lots of prize money at a very high level. For example, they won't be able to earn a living off it necessarily yet, as a general rule. But does that mean that 6 months later they're not going to turn into a professional and get on the tour and stuff like that? No, it doesn't. So it's also difficult to say who will get sponsorship and who won't, and that's some of the things we'll go out in this video about, what sort of things sponsors are looking for, and the ways to how to attract them as well. So to give you a bit more of a background on dart sponsorship, it's worth noting the first couple of key points about it. So the types of dart sponsorship available are generally three things. One would be dart sponsorship from a family point of view. You may have family and friends that want to see you do well. You've got to cover the cost to go to, say, an event, and they just want to see you do well. So they'll sponsor you to go in it, and just so you can maybe either win something or win a trophy or something like that as a good memory. So that's one type of it. That gets a little bit more in depth when you have, say, a family member who might want to see you go and make it into the pro ranks or something like that, and really take your career, make a career out of it because they think you're good enough. But they're not doing it in a professional sense. So what I would call them is an amateur sponsor, someone who is not doing it from a business point of view. They're doing it from a wanting to see you succeed, or they have belief in what you're doing. They're the easiest type of sponsor to get, and obviously they can be very beneficial for both parties. And there's also sometimes a lot less pressure involved than other types of sponsorship. The second type of sponsorship is what you would call, say, a semi-pro sponsorship, which is something along the lines of, we'll pay for your equipment, we will support you and do everything we can possible for you, but we'll also provide you with a certain amount of, say, like your entry fees or something like that. And that might be through either like a youth player or someone who is at the level they're not kind of earning money in prize money and stuff, but they have got talent and people want to help them progress that. And the third type of sponsorship is full out and out sponsorship. So that would be, you'll get generally two different types. So you'll either get a management company who will deal with all of the management side of the business. So they will deal with all they're their agent, really, if you look at it like that. So they'll deal with all their bookings. They'll try and get them more better media profile. They'll generally push everything cost wise in from their pocket. So the player pays nothing, the player just plays, and then at the end you'll get a split. Now that split's debated by a lot of people of what you would get from, say, a management company, and in my experience it can range from anywhere from 25% to 60% to the, say, the player getting, say, 80%, or the player getting, say, 40%. It could be anything, but it also depends on the structure of it. If someone's generally paying out for competitions, every expense you can think of, and they're supporting as well, and they're doing all the management side of it and booking everything, generally you're talking somewhere between 40 and 50% split for the managing agent. So the player would generally get either 60 or 50-50 a lot of the time. A lot of agents do that, but they don't talk about it. So it's something that's a little bit not known. And again, there is people out there who've got totally different to this, but the general rule is that's where it sort of sits. And with regards to the whole across the board types thing, is the most, I would say, have got a split because they've already gone and won something, or they're already kind of on, say, a pro level, you get a lot of sponsorships get picked up when someone gets their pro card, say the PDC Tour card, then they'll get involved with a sponsor, maybe a dart manufacturer that can help supply goods and stuff like that. The last sort of type of sponsorship is usually by, say, a manufacturer in some form that won't necessarily take a sort of cut of the prize money, but they also won't pay for everything. Now, it depends on what sort of companies you're talking about. It could be the big board manufacturers, you know, some of the big dart manufacturers. The other caveat to it is that the two ways that, in my view, I would see sponsorship going is either someone's becoming a world beater and they're going to become a champion and people are going to want to emulate what they're doing, or they're going to be able to provide value to that sponsorship company, whether it's a dart manufacturer or, you know, a board company, whatever it may be, by providing them with a bigger platform to either sell merchandise, sell goods, whatever it may be. So that's the two sort of splits. So and sometimes you get both of them. There are companies that will split straight down the middle and they do all of that thing, but generally you've got kind of either someone who thinks they're going to get a lot of price. So a great example is someone who's on the fringes of the Pro Tour. They're very, very good, and someone says, right, we'll back you to go and do everything you're doing, but we'd like a cut of your prize money, and we're going to supply everything and make sure we get, you know, manufacturer sponsors in, and so that you've got to do nothing other than play your game. And for a lot of people, that's a dream come true, because they then haven't got to worry about doing any costs out of their own pocket. So they become semi-pro essentially, because they're not paying out for anything other than if they win. So it's a win-win in that sense. And obviously people have got your full ride essentially, which is paid for everything, and there's no split. But that's quite rare. There's not many people who have got, you know, no sort of prize money split or anything like that, unless they're, say, a world champion already who's already gone and done it, and they've got no sponsor currently. But a lot of them, it's very rare that you have a player who's, say, a former world champion who has not got you know, or someone who's at that sort of level who's not got an agent, because they'll extend it or what it may be. And that's where leads us nicely into what are sponsorship companies looking for. So what are they looking for? The idea of sponsoring someone is to grow your brand or grow something you're trying to do in order to benefit the player and yourself. With regards to what exactly are they looking for, everybody's different, but the two things we outlined is where I go into the fact of how can you make yourself more attractive to a potential sponsor. And that would be the case of you either be able to provide value via, say, a platform or social media, or an actual avenue where you can grow their sales, you know, and grow their revenue, or it's going to be via direct revenue. So are you good enough, or is that person good enough to go on and win, you know, £500,000, £1 million prize money in a year, and then that person gets their money back, and then anything after that, the profits are split. That's the two marks you've got to look at. So when people say, how do I get a sponsor? And I get asked that quite a lot, you know, and obviously I'm not the same standard as what, say, someone is on the Pro Tour as of yet. That's my plan, but I'm down the other way. So I'm looking at it from I'd like to be able to provide value to people who are backing me and actually be able to help them in some sense. So therefore it works out for me. You know, I'm not at the standard where someone can go, oh, he's definitely going to go on and be a world champion. That's my belief, but, you know, that may not be their belief. But if they get a trade-off from it and they think, okay, he's going to be able to bring enough value in from that sense, then it works for both parties. But a lot of people who are looking for sponsors, you need to ask yourself a question if you are one of them people. How are you going to attract one? So either, where are you going to be seen? Are you going to bump into the head of a massive manufacturing company and have a chat and he's going to love you and you're going to be sponsored tomorrow? Possibly not. Or are you going to be seen winning a major tournament and then they're going to come knock it? So, you know, are you at the standard to win that tournament? That's the big question, because if someone's going to spend out, say, £500 or £700 to send you to Q School, are they going to lose their money? Probably, because there's no prize money at Q School. And what are your chances of getting through, say, PDC Q School right now? It's going to be slim if you're regularly, someone like myself last year was averaging around the 70 to 80 mark. It's realistically not going to happen. it's not impossible, but it's not a very good bet. It would not give you very good odds on that. So for me, it's a case of looking at that in a bit of a realistic way of, okay, what value can I provide to a potential sponsor, whether it's a dart manufacturer, a board manufacturer, a management company, whoever it may be, what value are you providing to them? And that's what you've got to think about. What is your best solution if you want to get a sponsor, is how can you go and do that? How can you go and provide that value? What's your strengths? You know, is it your game? Are you a big personality? Are you great with talking to people? Are you great with networking? Or are you not any of them things? You maybe have got to work on one. Or are you just going to get good at your game and beat everyone, and then everyone's going to come knocking? You've got to work out, if you're serious about getting that, what it means to you and what sort of path you want to go down. So that gives you a bit of an overview. With regards to another question I would ask, do you want a sponsor? That is what my point to you is. Would you actually want a sponsor? If you were at this level where you're, say averaging 80 to 85 or around that sort of mark, you're on the fringes, or even if you're averaging 90 to 95. I know there's people right there now who are averaging 90 to 95, and some of them even higher, that haven't got a sponsor, or they can't attract one. Do you want one? Is the question. And the reason why I ask that is because with sponsorship comes more pressure, because, and anyone would say, oh, they don't care, but when someone's laid out their money for you, there is pressure there. There is something that you've got to, you might get over after a while, but some people don't. They're always thinking about, oh, what will they think of me? It might not even be they're putting pressure on you. It might actually be you're just feeling guilty about it, because they're spending and you've not come home with any prize money or something like that, or you're not able to commit to the amount of sort of promoting that they need you to do. So do you want a sponsor in that sense? Because will you feel okay if you go to, say, on the Challenge Tour or WDF events, and for some reason it doesn't work out, and then you lose that person £1,000 or £2,000 over the course of a year? Are you going to be okay with that? When you're going to sit on the double, you are going to be okay with thinking, oh, what about them? Are you going to do that to yourself? And that's what I always think about, is, will that person be good if they've got that pressure there? And sometimes only the test of time will tell you that. But there is a lot of people over the years who've gone from being a really, really great standard, they get a sponsor and they make it more commercial, and then they can't throw properly, But a lot of people phase into it, and then they all of a sudden find their mojo, and then sort of explode. So there's varying degrees of all of it. But would you actually want to sponsor? And also, are you realistic in the fact of, if you're not going to be able to provide sort of promotion value or media value to another company, well, that basically leaves you with one option: get good enough to win events. And at that point, you've got to ask yourself, are you good enough to win them events? Okay, that's what you've got to ask. There's no point in you thinking, from my perspective anyway, everybody's different. People might say, oh, well, that's not true. Think whatever you like. I'm only trying to help what I know about the situation now, and what I've learned about a lot of different things to do with darts and sponsorship and seeing behind the curtain of a lot of it, is what exactly is made up of it, which a lot of people don't know. I remember when I first was starting out, I didn't have any idea about it at all. I was just self-funding everything totally, and I didn't know that part of it at all. So for me, it was hard to get that information. So I wanted to put this out there to actually give people some more information, and also give them a couple of direction and some advice. We've got a solution where I'll go through in a moment, where I can actually tell you, look, that's a trajectory you can easily go down right now. But for a lot of people, it's a question as, is it realistic? I know someone who's regularly averaging 90, 95. They play for Super League. They're a very, very good player, and they've won lots of local tournaments, but they're not really getting a sponsor. But if they took the advice of this video and sort of went and did one or the other, either put the hours in and improved, and actually really took it more seriously, they might push on and get to that standard where they can break into them pro ranks, or break into them prize money events, possibly, or they've got to change what they're doing and reassess it. And that's what I look for a lot of people. Either you're doing it for fun, or you're doing it as a business, and you're trying to treat it seriously to get to that point. So it's just being totally realistic with yourself, what your goals are and what you're trying to do. For a lot of people, darts is just fun. you know. I think that's great. I think it's a great sport. And I'm so lucky to have met all the people I've met in the community and on YouTube, and the support I've got from people, you know, to be hitting nearly 900 subscribers and it's going up all the time. You know, I thank you for that. So this is my way of, hopefully a few people on there have asked and stuff like that about stuff. Hopefully it helps in some way, even if it's just for fun. You know, even if it is for fun, I'm still going to keep doing the tips and stuff like that to help the people who don't want to go into that realm or don't want to do it. Even if someone they might know, they're asking one day about it. Hopefully you can tell them and they've got a bit more of an idea on something, you know. Because there's plenty of people that are at that level, they're causing themselves a lot of heartache because they're either kidding themselves or they're not doing the right things to take that next step. They may be better than they think they are. That's the case with a lot of people. They're better than they think they are, but they're not taking the right steps to jump to just the next point, you know, which may be the commercial side, because there's not a lot of information out there. So that leads me nicely on to the sort of final point is, if you are looking for a sponsor, what does a sponsor want from you as well? You know, what else is there that they're gonna want? Who do they look for? How do they scout someone? And I can tell you from my experience and affiliation with Mac Darts, you know, I can tell you that the crux of what a lot, and other companies as well, a lot of people look for a couple of things. So one, most importantly, is attitude. What is your attitude? You know, how seriously do you take what you're trying to do? You know, that is fundamental over everything, because if you take it seriously, you know, you're gonna prepare, you're gonna train, you're gonna, you know, and I know it's tough, some people don't do that, so some people don't put hours in, and that's okay. People can have that belief, but my view is the best players in the world practice, and it's showing the people who've come through have practiced a hell of a lot and worked on their game. It doesn't have to be a specific way, but people who are getting better in every sport in the world are the ones that put the time and the hours in, and that's my thought process on it. So, you know, attitude, being, you know, driven, hungry, and having a good attitude around training and wanting to go after it. Another point around that is being someone who people would want to relate to. You know, people who someone would want to buy something from, for example. You know, there's people out there who are fantastic players, but a sponsor wouldn't go near them because they're a terrible loser, or they've got a terrible attitude about them, and they're horrible in that sense. You know, and that's a big red flag to any potential sponsor from what I know about it, because if you've got that in your game, do you want that representing your brand or what you're trying to do? Probably not. Hence why, you know, you get a lot of, even outside darts, sponsorship companies are very selective with what they get incoming. There's dart companies that get thousands and thousands of emails sent to them. Oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. But a lot of the time, there's so many people out there around the similar, what's differentiating you? And if your attitude is not perfect anyway, then how do you attract that? That's the key point in my view. Another thing they're going to look for is what's the chances of you reaching a monetized level in the game where you are now, and what would it take to get you there? Are you on a trajectory where you're just going to carry on going, and do you know how to win? That's one thing a lot of potential sponsors look at is, have you already achieved something in a sport that has taken a lot of time and effort, and will you crack under pressure? That is one big point that they look at. Will you crack under pressure if you get to a certain standard? You know, will you not be able to carry on? Which, unfortunately, you're only going to know that when you get to a certain point, but there is a lot of things like that. One last final thing on what a sponsor's looking for is, really it comes down to the have they got the will to win? So have they gone on, and if not going to be great commercially, have they got the ability to win? I know there is players that are being sponsored out there right now that have just got the will to win. Unfortunately, they maybe not got the highest averages in the world, but they just know how to get through games. They just know how to get that win. And that's one thing a lot of people look for in something. Can they perform when it counts? Bottle, you could call it whatever you like, you know, but can they just grind out them results, even if they're not playing their best, and move forward with it? And I hope that, you know, for this video, I've spoke to a lot of people who've had dartitis and things like that, and you know, I will probably do a video on that at some point, although I've not had it myself. I've had feelings of that before in terms of mentally, and that's something that I think is a key part of the game where people need to, you know, get around and really do something to help people move forward. That because you've got some fantastic players out there that are just closed in from that sort of thing that sort of affects them, even though they're great players. But there's no real tools out there for people to cope with something like that. And there's so many people that have it and have their moments in darts because it's such a pressurized environment to be in. You know, it's such a, you know, when that double's got to come down, it's match darts. There's so many people that will miss that. I've missed match darts so many times, and that's not for a world title. So, you know, it's only going to get more the further you go into the sport. And that's all about hopefully this video is more about getting more information out there and people sharing their knowledge about what's going on behind the scenes, what happens in the industry. Because if no one does, how can the sport develop further? How can it become more commercial? How can it be classed as true? I know it is a sport, but how can it be classed by everybody else as a true sport instead of just, oh, it's a pub game, you know? Because it's more than that. It really is. There's serious money in it. There's serious time and effort goes into it, and you know, that's my view, is that hopefully, you know, more people can come out and say what their experience is, far more than mine, of this happens behind the scenes, or this goes on, or this is what needs to happen. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's about that moving forward, and that leads me into, you know, the final part I wanted to sort of go through with people, because if you send emails, if you're a good standard now and you want to compete with people and you want to take that next step in your sort of career and want to make it a career, that might be one of your goals, even if it's to earn £50 or whatever, you know. But if you want to do that and you want to try and get a sponsor to enable you to do that, you know, there's one easy way that I know of straight away that I'm very close to and affiliated to, which is the International Elite Darts Board. It's the IADB right there, and that is sponsored by Mac Darts, which is a company that was set up purely to cultivate talent and bring them forward into ranks and do it in a professional way. So the IADB is an online league that allows people to actually play for a Darts sponsorship contract. You know, that's a full sort of ride, and there's different tiers of that as well. So, you know, you have the Triple Crown League, which gives you different options. All the information is their website. I'll put a link in the bio anyway, but it gives you somewhere to start. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, if you become a member and you want to try and do that, you know, great. If not, no problem. Go and try and do what you're going to do anyway. But it's just to give people an idea. Look, there is, you know, and there's other companies out there right now that are offering these sort of sponsorships. But before you do that, my advice would be, do you want that for a start? You know, and are you prepared to put the time and effort in to get to that point? Because it gets a lot worse before it's going to get better. So they're the sort of things I would be thinking about, and I hope some of it's information and useful to you. You know, you may know everything that I've just said, but for me, I don't know that. So hopefully it helps some people, and I'm trying to do more darts related stuff that, you know, I'm no expert. Again, I say that a lot, but I'm not. You know, I know certain things that I know a lot about business, but I've learned a lot along the way of this journey that I'm going through with the darts and met different people and in contact with people. So I've learned a lot, and I want to share that with people because I don't think there's enough in the community out there. And I know I would have probably watched this video if I'd have seen it when I first started. You know, I wish I'd have known some of the stuff I know now that I knew then, you know, because it would have set me up a little bit differently starting off. So I hope it helps. Thank you again for all your support, guys. Really, really appreciate it. It means so much to me, and had my first ever tournament win the other day. Only a very small tournament, but for me to beat decent players and at the 899 hour mark in the experiment was a major point for me to be able to get on and go and get some confidence going forward. And it took me that long and that amount of hours to get a win under my belt. So, you know, a win in an actual tournament sense, take out them doubles, and averaging 94, which for me, averaging 94 in person is a massive achievement. You know, for me personally, look, I'm not going to go and win a major tournament tomorrow. I've still got a lot of work to do, but for where I actually come, you know, in January 2020 to average 94 in person, you know, in a first to five match is a huge achievement against decent players. So for me, It's all going in the right direction. Thank you for your support, and we'll keep them coming.